Greetings everyone, my name is Gigi and this is Let's Build, wherein I build a LEGO set timed to different media and talk about the facts concerning the topic of the build. Today's build is the LEGO Medieval Blacksmith versus the game The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. The footage I'm using from this game is for science, educational, and research purposes. My content is transformative and protected under fair use. All footage is time-lapse with commentary. There will be spoilers for Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. You have been warned. Specifications for the LEGO set. Take a break from modern life and build this magnificent LEGO Ideas Medieval Blacksmith display model. The architectural details of a 3-level building from the Middle Ages are lovingly recreated in LEGO style. The roof and top 2 levels lift off for easy viewing of the fully furnished bedroom, kitchen, and workshop packed with tools you'd have seen in a real medieval smithy, like a hammer and anvil. Other features include a glowing forge with a LEGO light brick, plus a garden with buildable models of an apple tree and a well, minifigures, and more. There are 4 minifigures to bring the scene to life: a blacksmith, archer, and 2 Black Falcon Knights, with 4 swords, 3 shields, and a halberd, plus a posable horse figure with buildable cart, dog, and frog figures. Part of a collection of inspiring LEGO sets designed to help adults relax in a creative way, this building kit makes a wonderful gift for the history lover or LEGO fan in your life. Stylish gift, part of a collection of inspiring LEGO sets designed to help adults relax in a creative way. This building kit makes a wonderful gift for yourself or the LEGO fan or hobbyist in your life. Capture the architectural details of a medieval blacksmith's workplace and home when you take time out from modern life to build this evocative LEGO Ideas display model. Includes 4 minifigures, a blacksmith, archer, and 2 Black Falcon Knights, with 4 swords, 3 shields, a halberd, plus a posable horse figure with a buildable cart and dog and frog figures. This 3-level building has a removable roof, and 2 top levels lift off easily for access to the fully furnished bedroom, kitchen, and workshop. The garden features an apple tree model and a well. The workshop is packed with accessory elements such as tools, coal, and armor. Press the bellows to activate the LEGO light brick in the blacksmith's coal forge and make it glow. Measures over 10.5 inches high, 10.5 inches wide, and 8 inches deep. An impressive buildable model to photograph and share. It makes a top gift for yourself or LEGO fans and hobbyists. An LR41 battery is included for the LEGO light brick in this building set for adults. This collectible 2,164-piece model comes with an illustrated booklet featuring the set's fan designer and LEGO designers, plus clear instructions so even LEGO newcomers can build confidently. This LEGO Ideas building set for adults is part of a collection of inspirational model kits designed for the discerning hobbyist who enjoys mindful DIY projects in their spare time. Meet Clemens Feidler. I'm 22 years old and live in Hanover, Germany. I study geography at the University of Hanover and plan to study landscape architecture after I complete my degree. I played with LEGO bricks for as long as I can remember, and my passion for medieval architecture and design was ignited early in life when my father's friend taught me how to forge metal. We started with small objects and then moved on to things like damask knives as well. It's a time-consuming process, but the results are really impressive. I've always found that the best way to get new building ideas is to search your passions and interests and create something you can really identify with. So that's how the idea for a charming old medieval blacksmith's workshop was born. With 2,164 bricks, this model is packed full of details too. I wanted to create a harmonious color scheme and stay true to the authentic architectural style throughout the set. The roof was a fun challenge. It has so many different elements and slopes. All in all, the original set took more than a month to create, including a digital version. Thanks to everyone who supported this project across the LEGO Ideas platform, the amazing LEGO fans community, and the LEGO designers. I hope you will enjoy traveling back in time, sense the heat, sounds and smells from the forge and anvil, and soak up the atmosphere in this classical creative craft as you build your set. The LEGO designers. Wes Talbot, LEGO Design Master. This medieval blacksmith's workshop immediately caught my eye. I love medieval architecture. The very iconic, half-timbered wattle and daub style. I've seen other fans create large medieval dioramas, but we never released an official model in this scale with this much detail until now. I love the layout of the building and the detailed exterior and interior. The concave bend in the roof adds so much to the character of the house. I hope you'll enjoy discovering all the little details in every nook and cranny of this set. Live out your own medieval fantasy as you build, and maybe go all in and create an entire medieval village. Austin William Carlson, LEGO Senior Designer. Working on this model took me back to my favorite classical tales of knights and castles. It has been a while since we've released an official medieval castle-themed set, and it was really fun to step back in time and rediscover that part of world history. And LEGO history too, of course. To help create something new that fans will hopefully love. Older Black Falcon's castle sets, from 1984 to 2002, were some of the most iconic and popular LEGO models ever. And being able to bring back these knight minifigures in this setting was a wonderful journey. Now go forth and build your own new heroic tales. LEGO Blacksmith Sets. The first LEGO Blacksmith shop was released in 1984. A horse, a hard-working blacksmith, and a brave knight provided lots of role-play fun. It would be 18 years before the next blacksmith shop came out in 2002. A cozy workshop for a blacksmith and his wife, designed by fan designer Daniel Siskind under the My Own Creation theme, the forerunners for LEGO Ideas. As part of the medieval theme in 2011, the LEGO Group also launched a LEGO Kingdoms Blacksmith Attack with an evil dragon knight and a hammer and anvil powered by a mill. The LEGO Medieval Blacksmith model is the biggest medieval set to date, with all the charm and authenticity of the classical medieval tale. From the architecture style to decorations and accessories, the immersive details of everyday medieval life in this model will spark your imagination and bring you back in time. A blacksmith is a metalsmith who creates objects primarily from wrought iron or steel, but sometimes from other metals, by forging the metal, using tools to hammer, bend, and cut. Blacksmiths produce objects such as gates, grills, railings, light fixtures, furniture, sculptures, tools, agricultural implements, decorative and religious items, cooking utensils, and weapons. There was a historical distinction between the heavy work of the blacksmith and the more detailed, delicate operations of a whitesmith, who usually worked with gold, silver, pewter, or the finishing steps of fine steel. The place where blacksmith works is variously called a smithy, a forge, or a blacksmith shop. A blacksmith is a combination of the two words black and smith. A smith is someone who works with metal, especially by hammering it when it is hot and malleable. A smith was described according to the metals that he worked with, such as goldsmith, silversmith, or blacksmith. A blacksmith was named because he was a smith who worked in the black metal, namely iron, as opposed to the white metals such as tin, silver, or gold. While smith may have first appeared in its current form in Middle English, it is really a much older word, probably based on a prehistoric German word meaning worker or craftsman. While there are many professionals who work with metal, such as farriers, wheelwrights, and armorers, in former times the blacksmith had a general knowledge of how to make and repair many things, from the most complex weapons and armor to simple things like nails or lengths of chain. The smithing process. Blacksmiths work by heating pieces of wrought iron or steel until the metal becomes soft enough for shaping with hand tools, such as a hammer, an anvil, and a chisel. Heating generally takes place in a forge, fueled by propane, natural gas, coal, charcoal, coke, or oil. Although mostly the modern ones use propane and natural gas. Medieval ones would be using the older methods. Color is important for indicating the temperature and workability of the metal. As iron heats to higher temperatures, it first glows red, then orange, yellow, and finally white. The ideal heat for most forging is the bright yellow-orange color that indicates forging heat. Because they must be able to see the glowing color of the metal, some blacksmiths work in dim, low-light conditions, but most work in well-lit conditions. The key is to having consistent lighting, but not too bright. Direct sunlight obscures the colors. The techniques of smithing can be roughly divided into forging, sometimes called sculpting, welding, heat treating, and finishing. A blacksmith's forge is a workplace where metal is worked by a blacksmith by heating and hammering, being a furnace consisting of a special hearth where metal is heated before shaping. The name of a forge was also referred to as a smithy. A forge wagon was a wagon fitted up for transporting a blacksmith's forge and tools. A portable forge was a light and compact blacksmith's forge with bellows, etc., that may be moved from place to place. Forging. Forging, the process smiths use to shape metal by hammering, differs from machining in that forging does not remove any material. Instead, the smith hammers the iron into shape. Even punching and cutting operations, except when trimming waste, by smiths usually rearrange the metal around the hole rather than drilling it out as a swarf. Forging uses 7 basic operations or techniques: drawing down, shrinking, a type of upsetting, bending, upsetting, swaging, punching, forge welding. These operations generally require at least a hammer and anvil, but smiths also use other tools and techniques to accommodate odd-sized or repetitive jobs. Medieval blacksmith bellows are a mechanical device that blows air into a fire to make it burn more fiercely. The invention of the bellows was highly significant. Before the invention of the bellows, the blacksmith apprentice would be required to blow through hollow tubes into the base of the fire to enable the furnace to reach a high enough temperature to make iron melt and to strengthen it through the addition of carbon to make it steel. The invention of the bellows allowed the medieval blacksmith to control the temperature of the fire better than blowing could. Finishing. Depending on the intended use of the piece, a blacksmith may finish it in a number of ways. A simple jig, a tool that the smith might only use a few times in the shop, may get the minimum of finishing. A rap on the anvil to break off some scale, and a brushing with a wire brush. Files bring a piece to final shape, removing burrs and sharp edges and smoothing the surface. Heat treatment and case hardening achieve the desired hardness. The wire brush, as a hand tool or, in modern days, a power tool, can further smooth, brighten, and polish surfaces. Grinding stones, abrasive paper, and emery wheels can further shape, smooth, and polish the surface. A range of treatments and finishes can inhibit oxidization and enhance or change the appearance of a piece. An experienced smith selects the finish based on the metal and on the intended use of the item. Finishes include, among others, paint, varnish, bluing, browning, oil, and wax. Blacksmith materials. When iron ore is smelted into usable metal, a certain amount of carbon is usually alloyed within the iron. Charcoal is almost pure carbon. The amount of carbon significantly affects the properties of the metal. If the carbon content is over 2%, the metal is called cast iron because it has relatively low melting point and is easily cast. It is quite brittle, however, and cannot be forged, so therefore cannot be used for blacksmithing. If the carbon content is between 0.25% and 2%, the resulting metal is tool steel, which can be heat treated. When the carbon content is below 0.25%, the metal is either wrought iron. Wrought iron is not smelted and cannot come from this process, or mild steel. The terms are never interchangeable. In pre-industrial times, the material of choice for blacksmiths was wrought iron. This iron had a very low carbon content and also included up to 5% of glassy iron silicate slag in the form of numerous very fine stringers. The slag content made the iron very tough, giving it considerable resistance to rusting and allowing it to be more easily forge welded, a process in which the blacksmith permanently joins two pieces of iron, or a piece of iron and a piece of steel, by heating them nearly to a white heat and hammering them together. Forge welding is more difficult with modern mild steel because it welds in a narrower temperature band. The fibrous nature of wrought iron required knowledge and skill to properly form any tool which would be subject to stress. Modern steel is produced using either a blast furnace or arc furnaces. Wrought iron was produced by a labor-intensive process called puddling. So this material is now a difficult-to-find specialty product. Other metals. Many blacksmiths also incorporate metals such as bronze, copper, or brass in artistic products. Aluminum and titanium may also be forged by the blacksmith's process. Bronze is an alloy of copper and tin, while brass is an alloy of copper and zinc. Each material responds differently under the hammer and must be separately studied by the blacksmith. Medieval period. In the medieval period, blacksmithing was considered part of the 7 mechanical arts. Prior to the Industrial Revolution, a village smithy was a staple of every town. Blacksmiths typically worked in small shops, often in the center of a village or town. Their shops were typically equipped with a forge, anvil, and a variety of other tools. The work of a medieval blacksmith was physically demanding and often dangerous. Blacksmiths had to be able to lift and move heavy pieces of metal, and they had to be careful not to burn themselves on the hot forge. Despite the challenges, blacksmithing was a respected trade in medieval society. Blacksmiths were considered to be skilled artisans, and their work was essential to the functioning of medieval society. The medieval blacksmith was an important member of the community. Their life would vary according to their location. A village blacksmith lived in a small rural community making various tools, household objects, and weapons. A castle blacksmith lived in the protection of the castle and required to make and maintain the weapons and armor of the lords, knights, and men-at-arms. The city of town blacksmith lived in the town and belonged to a guild. Monasteries or abbeys, monks who were also blacksmiths. Medieval blacksmiths were also an important part of a fighting army, making new weapons, keeping up a supply of arrowheads, and repairing and maintaining old weapons and armor. Medieval blacksmithing techniques. Medieval blacksmiths used a variety of techniques to create metal objects. One of the most common techniques was forging. Forging is the process of heating metal until it is soft enough to be shaped with a hammer and anvil. Another common technique was welding. Welding is the process of joining 2 pieces of metal together by heating them until they melt and then hammering them together. Blacksmiths also used a variety of other techniques, such as casting, cutting, and filing. The original fuel for forge fires was charcoal. Coal did not begin to replace charcoal until the forests of First Britain during the 17th century AD were largely depleted. Coal can be an inferior fuel for blacksmithing because much of the world's coal is contaminated with sulfur. Sulfur contamination of iron and steel make them red short, so that at red heat they become crumbly instead of plastic. Coal sold and purchased for the blacksmithing should be largely free of sulfur. European blacksmiths, before and through the medieval era, spent a great deal of time heating and hammering iron before forging it into finished articles. Although they were unaware of the chemical basis, they were aware that the quality of the iron was thus improved. From a scientific point of view, the reducing atmosphere of the forge was both removing oxygen and rust and soaking more carbon into the iron, thereby developing increasingly higher grades of steel as the process was continued. The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt is a 2015 action role-playing game developed and published by CD Projekt. It is the sequel to the 2011 game The Witcher 2 Assassins of Kings, and the 3rd game in the Witcher video game series, played in an open world with a third-person perspective. The game follows the Witcher series of fantasy novels by Polish author Andrzej Sapkowski. The game takes place in a fictional fantasy world based on Slavic folklore. Players control Geralt of Rivia, a monster slayer for hire known as a Witcher. and search for his adopted daughter, who is on the run from the wild hunt. Players battle the game's many dangers with weapons and magic, interact with non-player characters, and complete quests to acquire experience points and gold, which are used to increase Geralt's abilities and purchase equipment. The game's story has 3 possible endings, determined by the player's choices at key points in the narrative. Development began in 2011 and lasted for 3.5 years. Central and Northern European cultures formed the basis of the game's world. The game was developed using the Red Engine 3, which enabled CD Projekt to create a complex story without compromising its open world. The music was primarily composed by Marcin Shibowojits and performed by the Brandenburg State Orchestra. The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt was released for PlayStation 4, Windows, and Xbox One in May of 2015, with a Nintendo Switch version released in October of 2019, and a PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series XS versions, subtitled the Complete Editions, released in December of 2022. The game received critical acclaim, with praise for its gameplay, narrative, world design, combat, and visuals, although it received minor criticism due to some technical issues. It holds more than 200 Game of the Year awards and has been cited as one of the greatest video games ever made. 2 expansions were also released to critical acclaim, The Hearts of Stone and Blood and Wine. A Game of the Year edition was released in August 2016 with the base game, expansions, and all downloadable content included. The game has sold over 60 million units as of May 2025, making it one of the best-selling video games of all time. A sequel titled The Witcher 4 is in development. Gameplay. The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt is an action role-playing game with a third-person perspective. Players control Geralt of Rivia, a monster slayer known as a Witcher. Geralt walks, runs, rolls, and dodges, and, for the first time in the series, jumps, climbs, and swims. He has a variety of weapons, including bombs, a crossbow, and 2 swords, 1 steel and 1 silver. The steel sword is used primarily to kill humans, while the silver one is more effective against creatures and monsters. Players can draw out, switch, and sheath their swords at will. There are 2 modes of melee attack. Light attacks are fast but weak, and heavy attacks are strong but slow. Players can block and counter enemy attacks with their swords. Swords have a limited endurance and require regular repair. In addition to physical attacks, Geralt has 5 magical signs at his disposal: Ard, Axii, Igni, Irden, and Quen. Ard prompts Geralt to unleash a telekinetic blast. Axii confuses enemies. Igni burns them. Yrden slows them down, and Quen offers players a temporary protective shield. The signs use stamina and cannot be used indefinitely. Players can use mutagens to increase Geralt's magic power. Geralt loses health when attacked by enemies, although wearing armor can help reduce health loss. Health is restored with Health is restored with meditation or consumables, such as food and potions. Players occasionally control Ciri, Geralt's adopted daughter, who can teleport short distances. The game has a responsive, enhanced artificial intelligence and dynamic environments. The day-night cycle influences some monsters. A werewolf becomes more powerful during the night of a full moon. Players can learn about their enemies and prepare for combat by reading the in-game bestiary. When they kill an enemy, they can loot its corpse for valuables. Geralt's Witcher sense enables players to find objects of interest, including items that can be collected or scavenged. Items can be stored in the inventory, which can be expanded by purchasing upgrades. Players can sell items to vendors or use them to craft potions and bombs. They can visit blacksmiths to craft new weapons and armorers to craft new armor with what they have gathered. The price of an item and the cost of crafting it depends on a region's local economy. Players earn experience points by completing quests. When a player earns enough experience, Geralt's level increases and the player receives an ability point. These points may be used on 4 skill trees: combat, signs, alchemy, and general. Combat upgrades enhance Geralt's attacks and unlock new fighting techniques. Signs upgrades enable him to use magic more efficiently, and alchemy upgrades improved crafting abilities. General upgrades have a variety of functions, from raising Geralt's vitality to increasing crossbow damage. The game focuses on narrative and has a dialogue tree which allows players to choose how to respond to non-player characters. Geralt must make decisions which change the state of the world and lead to 36 possible endings, affecting the lives of in-game characters. He can have a romantic relationship with some of the game's female characters by completing certain quests. In addition to the main quests, books offer more information on the game's world. Players can begin side quests after visiting a town's notice board. These side missions include Witcher contracts, elaborate missions requiring players to hunt monsters, and treasure hunt quests, which reward players with top-tier weapons or armor. The game's open world is divided into several regions. Geralt can explore each region on foot or by transportation, such as boat. Roach, his horse, may be summoned at will. Players can kill enemies with their sword while riding Roach, but an enemy presence may frighten the horse and unseat Geralt. Points of interest may be found on the map, and players receive experience points after completing many missions in these regions. Players can discover places of power for additional ability points. The other activities include horse racing, boxing, and card playing. The card playing mechanic was later expanded into a standalone game, Gwent, the Witcher card game. A full physical edition of Gwent will be released through No Loading Games and Hatchet Board Games in Q3 of 2025. Synopsis: the setting. The game is set in The Continent, a fictional fantasy world based on Slavic folklore. It is surrounded by parallel dimensions and extra-dimensional worlds. Humans, elves, dwarves, monsters, and other creatures coexist on the continent, but non-humans are often persecuted for their differences in the northern realms. The continent is caught up in a war between the Empire of Nilfgaard, led by Emperor Emir Var Emreis, who invaded the northern kingdoms, and Redania, ruled by King Rodolvid V. Several locations appear, including the free city of Novigrad, the Redanian city of Oxenfurt, the no-man's land of Valen, the city of Vizima, the former capital of the recently conquered Temeria, the Skellig Islands, home to several clans who resemble Norse Gaels, and the Witcher stronghold of Kaer Morhen. Characters. The main character is the Witcher, Geralt of Rivia, a monster hunter trained since childhood in combat, tracking, alchemy, and magic, and made stronger, faster, and resistant to toxins by mutagens. He is aided by his lover, the powerful sorceress Yennefer of Vengerberg, his former love interest Triss Merigold, the bard Dandelion, the dwarf warrior Zoltan Shive, and Geralt's Witcher mentor Vesemir. Geralt is spurred into action by the reappearance of his and Yennefer's adopted daughter, Ciri. Ciri is a source born with innate and potentially vast magical abilities. After the apparent death of her parents, she was trained as a witcher while Yennefer taught her magic. Ciri disappeared years before to escape the Wild Hunt, a group of spectral warriors led by the king of the Wild Hunt, the elf Arendin, from a parallel dimension. Plot. Geralt and his mentor, Vesemir, arrive at the town of White Orchard after receiving a letter from Geralt's long-lost lover, Yennefer. After defeating a griffin for the local Nilfgaardian garrison, Geralt accompanies Yennefer to the city of Vizima, where they meet with Emperor Emhyr. Emhyr orders Geralt to find Ciri, who is Emhyr's biological and Geralt's adopted daughter. Ciri is a child of the Elder Blood, the last heir to an ancient elven bloodline that grants her the power to manipulate time and space, and is being relentlessly stalked by the enigmatic Wild Hunt. Geralt learns of 3 places Ciri was recently seen: the war-ravaged swamp province of Valen, the free city-state of Novigrad, and the Skellig Islands. In Valen, Geralt tracks Ciri to the fortress of the Bloody Baron, a warlord who recently took over the province. The Baron demands that Geralt find his missing wife and daughter in exchange for information about Ciri. Geralt learns that the Baron drove his own family away with his drunken rages. While his daughter fled to Oxenfurt, his wife Anna became a servant of the Crones, 3 malicious witches that watch over Valen. He also discovers that Ciri was briefly captured by the Crones, but escaped to the Baron's stronghold before continuing on to Novigrad. At Novigrad, Geralt reunites with his former lover, Triss Merigold, who has gone underground to escape persecution by the Church of Eternal Fire. He learns that Ciri and his old friend Dandelion ran afoul of Novigrad's powerful crime bosses while seeking to break a curse related to a mysterious phylactery. With the help of Triss and several old acquaintances, Geralt rescues Dandelion, who tells him that Ciri teleported away to escape pursuit by guards. Geralt sails to Skellig and reunites with Yennefer, who is investigating a magical explosion near where Ciri was last seen. They discover that Ciri visited the village of Lofoten, where the Wild Hunt attacked again, fled in a boat with an unidentified elf. When the boat returned to shore, its only occupant was Uma, a deformed creature Geralt previously saw living with the Bloody Baron. Deducing that Uma was the victim of the curse Ciri tried to lift in Novigrad, Geralt collects Uma in Valen and takes him to the nearly abandoned Witcher school at Kaer Morhen. Working with Yennefer and his fellow Witchers, Geralt breaks the curse and restores Uma's true identity. Avalok. Ciri's teacher, and the elf seen with her on her travels. Avallac'h tells Geralt that he placed Ciri in an enchanted sleep on the Isle of Mists to keep her temporarily safe from the Wild Hunt. Geralt finds Ciri on the Isle of Mists and learns from her that Arundin, the leader of the Wild Hunt, wants her elder blood powers to save his homeworld from a catastrophe known as the White Frost. They return to Kaer Morhen and fortify it against the inevitable arrival of the hunt. In the battle that ensues, Vesemir is killed, causing Ciri to unleash her uncontrolled power and temporarily send the hunt to retreat. Realizing that the hunt will never stop, Ciri and Geralt decide to fight Arundin at a time and place of their choosing. While Triss and Yennefer reform the Lodge of Sorceresses to aid in the fight, Geralt recovers the Sunstone, an artifact that can communicate between worlds. Using the Sunstone, Avallac'h lures Arundin to Skellig, where Geralt plans to defeat him in combat. As he dies, Arundin tells Geralt that Avallac'h has betrayed him and plans to use Ciri's power for his own ends. As the White Frost begins to encroach on the continent, Geralt and Yennefer pursue Avallac'h, but find Ciri alive and well. She tells Geralt that Avallac'h is not a traitor and has only ever intended to fight the White Frost. Thinking back on her relationship with Geralt, Ciri finds the strength to stop the cataclysm. If Geralt patronized and protected her throughout the game, she dies in the attempt, but if he guided her to mature and make her own choices, she survives. The player's choices can lead to several different endings. The Blacksmiths of Witcher 3. Only a blacksmith can craft weapons in The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. Geralt of Rivia will have to bring the required materials to a blacksmith to have new professionally crafted swords and crossbows. Similarly, armor can only be forged by armorers. It is also better to sell weapons, upgrades, and horse equipment to blacksmiths because they offer an extra 20% plus profit compared to other types of shopkeeps. At White Orchard, the quartermaster at the Nilfgaardian garrison. This quartermaster was stationed at the Nilfgaardian garrison in White Orchard in 1272, and he is an amateur blacksmith. He's located by the entrance to the main building of the garrison, where Peter Sar, Gwenleave, the captain of the garrison, has his working space and desk. When met for the first time, he'll have around 680 coin. When Geralt first talked to him, he accused him of spying, showing that he did not trust Nordlings. He did so again if Geralt asked about the camp morale, and added that the Nilfgaardian victory was assured and nothing more. However, this may only have been a warning, since he was keen to trade and do blacksmith work. There is another blacksmith in the area, but he is only there temporarily. In Valen, the blacksmith in Blackbow. This blacksmith is a Gwent player, using the Scoia'tael deck. He sells crafting components, weapons, and lesser runestones, as well as diagrams for them. He also sells Adabart Cursemith's second map. Blacksmith in Lindenvale. The blacksmith in Lindenvale is an amateur blacksmith and an avid Gwent player, using the Scoia'tael deck. In addition to usual items sold by all Valen blacksmiths, he also sells 2 maps for Witcher Gear scavenger hunt quests, and the master-crafted saddle. If Geralt asks him if he could craft any master-quality weapons, he tells the Witcher about Abenher Hattori of Novigrad, which will trigger the respective quest. The Blacksmith in Oriton. The blacksmith in Oriton sells a couple of crossbows and blunt crossbow bolts, in addition to the usual Valen selection of crafting components, lesser runestones, weapons, and crafting diagrams. The Blacksmith on the Road to Bald Mountain Village. The blacksmith in the little village near Bald Mountain appears at the start of the Bald Mountain quest. Before that, only foglets can be seen at the location, and they return after the quest completes as well, but he will remain there regardless. He doesn't sell anything interesting, having the inventory and pricing of generic Valen blacksmiths, but can be useful for repairs and getting rid of excess gear, as Bald Mountain is a part of a long sequence of main quests during which fast traveling is disabled and gameplay is restricted to story-relevant areas. In Novigrad and Oxenfurt, Blacksmith at the Fish Market. This blacksmith is based in an alcove in the northern side of Novigrad's Fish Market. He is a Gwent player with a monsters deck and sells weapons, runestones, crafting components, and a number of crafting diagrams, with 4 of them for crossbow bolts. The Blacksmith in Oxenfurt. This blacksmith is located on the eastern side of Oxenfurt, and his customized offerings include a couple of crossbows and many types of bolts for them. His pricing and inventory is otherwise that of a Novigrad blacksmith, and as such sells many other weapons, all base game runestones and diagrams for the non-greater ones, as well as crafting components. He's also a Gwent player and has a fairly strong monsters deck. The Blacksmith in Silverton. This blacksmith has an outdoors shop right in the middle of Novigrad's Silverton district. Aside from the usual stuff sold by other Novigradian blacksmiths, he also sells a blunt sword and 4 bolt diagrams. He is also a Gwent player, using the Nilfgaardian deck. Ebenher Hattori in Glory Lane. Ebenher Hattori is an elven master swordsmith living in a house in the Glory Lane district of Novigrad until around 1272. He becomes available as a blacksmith once the quest of swords and dumplings is completed, and will sell a few maps for Witcher gear treasure hunt quests, and many crossbows and bolts, in addition to the usual variety of weapons, crafting components, runestones, and diagrams, as other Nilfgaardian blacksmiths. Hattori made a decent living making master swords, and his name became known far and wide. However, when fellow swordsmith Ernst von Horn started their own business, Van Horn realized they lacked real skill to compete with the others in the area, and so began to find other ways to monopolize on the swordsmithing trade, pushing anyone out of business or making false accusations, like accusing Hattori of working with Havakars. Hattori tried to fight back and took the matter to town hall, but with the Van Horn backed by a local gang leader, Cleaver, Hattori's appeal was denied. Faced with either being killed or dropping out of the swordsmithing business, Hattori turned to making dumplings instead, converting the outside of his home into a small restaurant. If Geralt helps him get back into swordsmithing, one day Hattori was greeted by a witcher, Geralt, and decided he missed the forge too much, and to try and get supplies through another gang leader, the King of Beggars. However, it soon led him to having to get temporary bodyguard in the form of Sucrus, as undoubtedly Cleaver would try to do away with the one trying to break up the swordsmithing monopoly. However, even with all the troubles that arose, Hattori was finally successful and able to return to working with a forge in peace. Skellig, blacksmiths in Faerlund. There are 2 blacksmiths in Faerlund. Both play Gwent using the monsters deck, and both sell mostly the same things as all other Skellig blacksmiths, with only a couple of minor items differing. The permanent blacksmith. This blacksmith is always present, and his custom store has a couple of crossbows and broadhead bolts. The rescued blacksmith. This is the person in distress northwest from the village, and is only available immediately after being rescued. He has to be escorted on his way home, or he'll get stuck panicking near a couple of bears, even though they aren't close enough to threaten him. Upon reaching the village, he'll usually stand close to his colleague, but will be gone the next time Geralt visits Faerlund. In addition to the usual stuff, he sells just a few alchemy ingredients. Blacksmith in Harviken. The blacksmith in Harviken plays Gwent using Scoia'tael deck. Blacksmith in Larvik. The blacksmith in Larvik plays Gwent using the monsters deck. He sells a couple of crossbows, runestones, crafting components, and swords diagrams. Blacksmith in Aurelia Harbor. This blacksmith has a forge in Aurelia Harbor and plays Gwent using the monsters deck. He sells runestones, weapons, crafting components, and swords diagrams. The smith in Fyresdal. Smith living in Fyresdal is the local blacksmith. He is also a Gwent player, Scoia'tael deck, and sells runestones, crafting components, and a number of crafting diagrams. The smith at Kaer Mori. The smith at Kaer Mori plays Gwent with the Scoia'tael deck. He sells almost only generic Skellig blacksmith items, but is guaranteed to offer most lesser runestones at level 13. Depending on choices made during the King's Gambit, he may later become unavailable when the story progresses to the early parts of the Sunstone quest. Smith in Svorlag. The smith in Svorlag plays Gwent using the Nilfgaardian deck. He also sells runestones, weapons, crafting components, and several crafting diagrams. Quartermaster at Marlin Coast. This Nilfgaardian quartermaster acts as a blacksmith on the Ondevix Marlin Coast only during the main quest on Thin Ice. He sells the same things as any blacksmith in Skellig would, melee weapons, runestones, crafting diagrams, and components. He is only available during the On Thin Ice quest. The Sigurd blacksmith in Erenjorn. Sigurd was the blacksmith from Erenjorn. He has free time when he is either playing Gwent or writing poems. He sells crafting components, runestones, and a number of crafting diagrams. Jan, the blacksmith at the Caer Trottel Citadel. Yanni was the blacksmith stationed at Caer Trottel Keep in 1272. He sells a few crossbows, bolts, and horse equipment, in addition to a variety of weapons, runestones, crafting components, and diagrams sold by all the blacksmiths in Skellig. While he worked at Caer Trottel, his family is from Faroe. However, he constantly wrote to them, asking them to move to Caer Trold as well, though they chose not to. Things took a turn for the worse for the family in Faroe, and so Yenne's sister, Singa, made her way to Caer Trold in hopes of finding work while their mother stayed behind for now. Singa's trip soon met its end, though, on Erd Skellig, having run into a cyclops on the road which promptly killed all the travelers. If Geralt finds the wagon but hides the truth, upset, Yanne incorrectly believed that the Witcher himself killed Singa and refuses to do business with him. If Geralt finds the wagon and tells the truth, while upset, Yanne thanked the Witcher for bringing him the news of what happened to his sister and sent people out to recover her body and bury her. Toussaint. The blacksmith at Belgard Vineyard. This blacksmith works at Belgard Vineyard, but only becomes available if Geralt rescues him from a haunts of bandits at a small camp by the river, east of the Term's Palace ruins. He has the same inventory as Trenton, and is similarly a master. The blacksmith at Arthach Palace ruins. The blacksmith at Arthach Palace ruins will appear once Antony Strigan's Hant's base there has been cleared. He mostly sells runestones and crafting components. Geralt can mention a guy named Stragan in a conversation with him, who happens to have been burned by druids, apparently. The blacksmith at Tourney Grounds. This blacksmith is found at the Tourney Grounds and plays Gwent, using the Skellig deck. While there are technically 2 labeled blacksmiths at this tent, only one is available to do business with. The blacksmith at the Ardazio Quarry. Ardazio Quarry sells several mining-related crafting items from the very start. The Zer Lafargu was a Grandmaster Armorer and blacksmith who was, in 1275, living in his workshop in Hautville. He was trained by the legendary elven smith, Teinsal. With the right diagrams, he can craft Grandmaster armor. He also sells the usual crafting items and various weapons and armor. As a Grandmaster blacksmith, he can craft and dismantle various gear. He can create relic swords, superior master-crafted Witcher gear swords, and chest armors. He can also dismantle items like Dwarven Blade, Faustino Gnomish Guerrier, Impera Brigade Armor, and others to get enriched Deridium or... His offerings include horse equipment, diagrams, and upgrades for different items. The availability and prices of these items depend on their levels and stats. Trenton in Hautville. Trenton is a master blacksmith working in his workshop in central Hautville, Beauclair. He is an avid Gwent player, but keeps that a secret in order to placate his wife. He can only be played during the secondary quest, Till Death Do You Part, where if Geralt sides with Louis de Corentin and moves his wife's urn, he will have a chance to talk to Trenton about collecting the Forged in Fire sword as a reward. The blacksmith will then ask for a chance to get even by playing a round of Gwent, and if agreed to, will use the Scoia'tael Gwent deck. For this build, I decided to play The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, because the blacksmith shops had a more realistic look to them than the shops in Monster Hunter, which was my next option for games that I own. Total build time today, 5 hours, 51 minutes, 53 seconds. You could watch 5 full episodes, and 42 minutes of the 6th episode of The Witcher while building this set. Let me know what you think in the comments section below. Remember to like, subscribe, share, ring that bell, all the things for the YouTubes. Thank you.